Welcome back to the Growth Hacking Culture podcast. Today, we are tackling a critical issue for organizations worldwide, the future of leadership development. By the way, it's not that great. In a world where there is AI rapidly transforming how we learn, it's no surprise that it's making waves on leadership training too, but there is not so many people who has adopted yet. There is a little bit of fear. Traditional leadership development often falls short. It is frequently a one-size-fits-all approach, failing to address individual needs and of the dynamic challenges that we have in the workplace. And studies consistently reveal that companies struggle with creating effective leadership pipelines, with many reporting a significant gap between current leadership capabilities and the future needs. This is maybe where AI steps in, offering the promise of a tailored, data-driven development, capable of following up, making them practice, making them feedback. But I don't want to go that far because today we have the person that has gone that far and who is going to explain us a little bit more about this area where AI can really support leadership development and in the meanwhile, keeping this human touch. And we are going to be discussing about personalized learning journeys, assessing crucial soft skills, and ultimately creating a more effective and engaging development experience. Thank you very much, Sarah, for being with me today. Your CV is a little bit kind of impressive, and that
Oh, thank you.
I got curious, not only about what you do with artificial intelligence, but also about a little bit more about your background. We have a little bit of a similar background, but you have founded not so long, well, a couple of years back, a company called Waggle that is, if I understood correctly, an AI co-pilot for people who manage people. And when we say co-pilot, nothing to do with Microsoft solution because this is a piece of shit. Anyways, I had to criticize. That was too easy, Sarah.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible from what I'm hearing. Yeah, so let me tell you a bit more. First part is thank you for having me. Really excited to have this conversation, and love what you are working on. So, and I'm sure we're going to find a lot of common ground. But yeah, more generally, like I'm Sarah. I'm Moroccan. I grew up in Morocco. I studied in France. Um, what I usually say is that I went to a business school because I had no clue what I wanted to do in life. That's
That
generally
happens.
what you do. So I actually studied finance and I worked in banking and insurance companies in the beginning of my career, in like internal audit or consulting roles. So basically working with the board and senior leadership to figure out what's working, what's not working, and helping them fix what's broken. And from there, I wanted to get my hands a bit more dirty, so I joined a very early stage fintech in London called Credit Spring. I left basically the biggest bank in France to join a four-people team with no product, no customers, not even the right to like actually get customers. So joined that was a super exciting experience where we grew to company to about 80 people, of which I managed a good chunk across product, people, operations, customer support, basically like anything, like most things you can think of. I even managed marketing at some point. And the challenge there was like I was actually brought into that role because I had this experience in compliance and risk management and banking. But at the end of the day, what I was spending all of my time doing is trying to get startup people and bankers work together to create this company and this company culture. And I started getting obsessed with this topic. And I was like, we can't be the only ones struggling with these issues. And every time I spoke to someone like in another startup or another company, I realized the management or like leadership development issue is not a problem that has been solved. And most importantly, the way everyone was still trying, like yeah, most importantly, it was like we still were basically dealing with leadership development and training managers and upskilling managers uh, in the same way that we've done 30 years ago. And there's research from the 18th century that shows that that training or one-off training doesn't work because we forget it. It's
Hmm.
literally from the 19th century. And I don't understand why it's 2025 now. I mean, 2023 when I started, and we were still doing something that everyone knows doesn't work, has been known for 2 centuries, and for one of the roles and one of the skills that are the most impactful for businesses. So it just didn't make sense for me, and started digging into the topic and figured out, okay, someone needs to fix it, so I might as well try. And here I am.
You know what, Sarah, you made me remember that. I still remember the first time that I had my first leadership development training. It was a 3 days, if I remember correct, 3 days training. And they gave me like a folder, a big folder with a lot of paper. Um, 15 years later, I was still in the same company. And so one of my direct reports brought the same file. I can tell you that maybe there was just a couple of pages that were different than my version, but in 15 years, nothing had changed. It was like a best practice to do something that you did in the past. And by the way, that wasn't working because the culture wasn't like so amazing. They were trying to change it, but this piece of paper wasn't changing. So how
Yeah.
can you have an impact across an organization if you're teaching the same old stuff, managing administration instead of managing people, influencing them, wanting them to change, to ignite the fire that they feel right? That I had my wow moment back then.
That's yeah, crazy. It's and also like to be honest, it's also the format of it, right? Like this like massive like pile of paper that they gave you. How did you actually read it? How often did you read it? Yeah, I'm sure you didn't because there's just literally no way you can do your job and go back and read all of that stuff and also think about, oh, I need to remember that this thing that this page said, I need to practice it right now. This is the moment where I need to practice it. It's not possible. That's not how humans work.
Now, I have a belief, but I want to share that big question that I have got for a long time is these people, human resources, are usually the ones preparing these programs for the leadership development. Most of them have a background in psychology. Most of them have a little bit of understanding of the theory of learnings, how people learns with practice, feedback, and so on. And nevertheless, this traditional way of developing leaders has stayed for like that forever. The question is it because one, they're lazy? Two, there is no solution. There wasn't a right solution to change the paradigm, and that was the best that you can have. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I'm not sure I completely have the answer to, but I can give you some pieces of what I'm seeing on the ground. I don't think it's laziness. I think I think it's a mix between one, there wasn't really a solution to fix
Hmm.
it, because and the other part is that we have been stuck in this L&D space in a content generation mindset because there was no solution. Now things are changing, but I think this content generation mindset is still very much there, and we need to shift the focus from generating content. So the first part is very, very easy to understand. Training was for a while. Training was what we've seen, what we've had at school is you go to someone who is very knowledgeable. That person who is knowledgeable basically tells you what they know,
Hmm.
and you absorb some of it. And then hopefully you get exercises to practice that knowledge so that you have a recall moment, because this is how we learn. We learn um, by so actually we learn through pain. Apparently, the research shows that you need to learning needs to be painful to stick. Otherwise, it doesn't stick. So basically, just sitting in front of someone who just says stuff at you doesn't really have an impact. So what creates that pain is failure, and that failure you get it from doing exercises or practicing. That's how you get the pain, and that's how you then go to look for the solution and then remember the solution or a different way to do things. And so we were still, like, I think even in L&D and corporate training, we were still very much in the same mindset that someone needs to download their knowledge onto you. And then we moved from that to, okay, we have the internet now. So instead of doing an in-person session where someone downloads their knowledge on you, you have like a video that you need to watch that is, again, downloading, like trying to download knowledge onto someone. And that's where the content generation piece has become like very important. And so basically that was like the extent of the thinking, is like, there's knowledge, we need to transfer that knowledge from the person who knows to the person who doesn't know. And then ideally, like, there's some exercises, but we've all done that compliance training. Like, you know what the answers are going to be. Like, you don't even need to listen to the e-learning to answer the questions. You kind of figure it out. Not sure that you know anything more at the end of the training. And so I think with AI, with two things, but that we have been using, because we kind of started at the early days of the LLMs and all of that. One part is behavioral science has made lots of progress over the last 20 years, and it has been used in B2C products quite a lot. So Duolingo, which is one of the most known ones, uses behavioral science a lot in the product. Now, it wasn't so much used in B2B products for some reason. But basically, we're trying to get to a mindset where we're not trying to just download knowledge on people, but we're trying to change how they behave and how they act, which is what's key with like soft skills, if we want to call them soft skills. It's not just that you know you shouldn't interrupt people, is that you actually don't interrupt people, which is different. So yeah, there just wasn't a solution, I think, to do that. Behavioral science and then AI now can enable us to customize people's experiences a bit more. But then the second part is that, like, mindset shift that needs to happen in L&D teams and L&D organizations, where we say, okay, now we have the tools to think about the topic differently. So it's also an incentives issue. In most of the cases, where like those teams are still being judged and measured on how much the content they generate is consumed. So if your main KPI as a team is X% of the people in the company have done the training, then you're going to be more in, like, if we provide you with an AI solution that is not a done and forgotten about solution, it doesn't help you hit your targets for your KPIs that you're being measured on. So there's also like a mindset shift that needs to happen from just content consumption to impact. Like, how did that training or whatever training, how did that training actually change people's behaviors, and how did that impact the company, on top of just, okay, this is a checkbox, I had X% of the headcount do the training. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but
it seems to me that I would need to rephrase what I said before, that it's not because there wasn't a solution. There was a solution, but that solution would have been very expensive, because if what you were mentioning, exactly the pain points were, how do we track that somebody's doing what they learn? for that, okay, you need a shadow guy going around, like paying someone to go around. How do you give feedback? Are you going to spend one minimum $100 in a coach who is going to be once or twice per week? How do you motivate the guy when, I mean, because the
Exactly.
idea, as you
Yeah.
said, is not really about acquiring the knowledge, but more about making that this knowledge is reflected with behaviors like a reflex. Like when you are driving a car, you don't even think about it. You're not thinking about all the movements, and we make a shitload of movement when we're driving, but we don't think about it. And ultimately, that was too expensive. So that's why it's almost like no solution. But in reality, there was a solution, but it was bloody expensive.
Yeah, and you're totally right. The solution you're describing has been used for key roles, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're hiring a CEO or if you have like a senior leadership team, then you will have a coach. They will have like an expensive coach and still like that's more true in the US than in Europe. I think
Mm.
it's starting in Europe, but you will have a coach like actually sits some of our advisory um, um, yeah, some of our advisors in the company actually are those high paid coaches that
Mm.
sit in like a board meeting and like simply look at how people are interacting with each other, make notes, and then give feedback at the end of the meeting. But that's
Mm.
super expensive. Like it's absolutely not scalable. And you have to limit it to like high stake meetings, super senior people, and you can't give that to everyone in the company. And that means that at some point the impact is going to be stopped because your senior leadership has a coach and has access to the best solutions, and then there's a breaking point where no one else below that have access to anything.
Mm. You know, you made me think. I had forgotten about when I started being an entrepreneur 7 years ago. I fell in love with this company called Better Up, who are
Yeah.
doing coaching, and I fell in love because wow, it looked like they had science behind that. They have a structure, and lately, I have noticed also that suddenly this bunch of coaches that they had behind, the numbers are reduced, and more of AI is being used to minimize, in fact, all the analysis that a coach had to prepare sometimes because we need to, if you're a coach, you need to take notes and think a little bit about the path that a person needs to follow to grow. And it seems that they are investing into creating um, models that help people with less intervention of humans. But I mean, so is Better Up your competitor, Sarah?
That's a great question. It depends how you define competition, right? It's always the
Mm.
case, right? Like, I think I think better up in terms of pricing points is still like significantly more costly than our solution.
Yeah.
And the how to say it? I'm not 100%, I'm trained as a coach as well. And I'm not 100% convinced yet that we can have the same level of conversations with an AI than a coaching conversation with an AI that we can with a human.
Mm.
And that's not because the AI is not technically able to have that conversation. Basically, it's not an AI limitation, it's a human limitation. Again, if we come to behavioral science, I don't think we are given the same weight to what an AI says than we would give to a human. So if like an AI asks you to like really deeply think about a topic or challenges you on a deep belief, I'm not sure you would spend as much time thinking about it as you would if it was a human. And that's where I think the limitation is for proper coaching. So that's why like sometimes we talk about our product as a coach, but truly it's more of a co-pilot like you were mentioning before. So
Mm.
we're not trying to replace a coach. We're trying to bring self-awareness and like a feedback loop to to people. And the way we do it also is slightly different, is we want to do it in the flow of work. So most people don't have time or the will to actually go speak to a coach, whether it's an AI coach or a human coach, and reflect on their day. They're so taken by their day to day that they don't have the bandwidth to do that, to take like an hour off to do this. What we do is we are like basically plugged in your meetings and we give you feedback on your real behavior in the meetings with your team members, um, in the flow of work. So immediately after you finish your call, you get your feedback. It takes you 2 minutes to go through, or you can just go through it once a day or once a week. And it's not like as much an interruption in your daily workflow as it would be to actually go and speak to a coach.
Hmm.
Um, what it does is that if you still are the type of person who wants to go and speak to a coach, you have data points that you can take to the coach and have conversations about. So it can make that conversation also more rich and more data driven.
Absolutely. You know what? You made me think. I did an experiment like a couple of like 6 months ago. I had a couple of students from university, and I asked them for help to customize a bot, an AI bot. And what I noticed is that out of the six, three of them went a little bit beyond on in terms of customizing their style to having someone to speak to in a more natural way that, of course, in people like in my age, I'm an old fart, so I wouldn't do that. I prefer humans. But in his case, in that case, it was like more natural that they started discussing certain things. Once they learned the prompting area, the guys started exploring how to get feedback for a couple of personal things, even girlfriends. So what the hell? So maybe there is an opportunity for younger generation to adopt in an easier manner AI bot than because it's almost like they don't feel ashamed anymore about discussing whatever.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. So that's feedback we're getting from a lot of our users, that if they were to receive the same feedback from, like, they would feel less at ease with that feedback from a person than they are now with an AI, because one, they don't feel that there are feelings involved. They feel like it's an objective assessment
Mm,
that the AI is making. It's not based on whether they like them, don't like them. Um, and also they don't, there's less of that like feeling of being judged. So it's an AI, it's there, you kind of adapt your behavior a little bit, which is good because as you were comparing to driving, if when you know there's um, something that is tracking your speed, you're going to pay more attention to how fast you're driving. This is has a similar impact, which is called the Hawthorne effect. So basically, that feeling that you're being observed
mm,
actually changes people's behavior. So they pay attention to not interrupt people as much. They pay attention to not show up late to meetings. They make sure that they ask questions in the right way. So they change their behavior, but at the same, not too much, because it's not an actual person listening to them and observing them. It's an AI, so they kind of forget about it at the same time.
mm. Uh, as we are talking very human things here, I wanted to understand, to have your opinion about what are the non-negotiable elements that we have to consider when implementing a solution for leadership development. And if we use AI, where is the line where we say, okay, can we do everything with AI for leadership development? Or where should we put the line where, no, this is human, dot.
Interesting question. What do you mean by what would be something, for example, for you that you wouldn't have AI help with?
Ooh. um, what? in fact, I'm quite open about AI because I've been playing around so much, and especially in the area of self-awareness, because I say things and then I reflect back. I get like a summary of what I say or correlations that I didn't see in 20 minutes ago in a sentence. Um, Self-awareness is something that I am quite comfortable. Um, Nudging, reminding me about doing something that I should be doing. I'm quite comfortable. Um, and the worst is that even the human thing of creativity, uh, AI, if we consider creativity just as extrapolation of different experiences together, yes, it will not make me create something artistic that is quite unique, but it can give me a hell of a lot of ideas for innovation in corporates because it has a library and it can interconnect a lot of things. Listen, in my case, I don't have any limitations.
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing is like you're probably on the open-minded side. There's when people are worried, they're usually worried about what happens to the data. And
Hmm.
so, which is a fair point. In our case, we encrypt everything. We use the same level of encryption as banks do for banking data. So that's like something that's super key for us. And also, we consider that the person who's receiving the feedback owns their data. So basically, at company level, even if we're asked, we never share the feedback that each person gets. What we do is we aggregate it and we give like senior leadership or like whoever wants to see the data as an at an aggregated level,
Hmm.
but not in a way where they can know who is doing what or who is saying what. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the end user is the person who's owning their data and they can decide who they want to share it with. And if they don't want to share it, we shouldn't be sharing it. So, yeah, privacy, what you do with the data, how it's protected, how you make sure that private conversations remain private, I think is super important. And then it's really a case by case basis, right? Like, I think what we tell our users is if you feel like in a specific conversation, you don't want the AI to be there, just kick it out, right? Like some conversations,
Hmm.
like if you're going to talk about personal topics or very specific, like very sensitive topics that you feel the AI might have an impact on people's behaviors, kick it out. We don't need to have every single action tracked to get a good sense of how someone performs and how they behave and give them valuable feedback. We don't need to be there all the time, right? It's like, I don't know, your Apple Watch, let's say. You don't need to wear it 24 hours a day to get value out of it. So if you have it for like a few like select meetings, that's enough.
Hmm. Sarah, I thought about one point that I didn't realize that I do very often is that when I'm using a new uh, bot, if you want, for a Gen AI tool, I'm always validating if there is a bias. I'm always afraid that somebody has created a thing with a slight bias, either politically or with things that I do not believe. Like, for instance, if there is an AI who tells me, no, this is not allowed by God, I don't know, LGBTQ people, I don't know. And if it doesn't match with my beliefs, then okay, that has been heavily been biased. I always double check. I have a question that I use in order uh, to validate if there is a bias, or if the bias is being built. Like, for instance, not so long time ago, I did the trial of a question that I did with Grok 2 months ago, and it was a little bit different. So it means that there is a little bit of nudging of the tool towards one area representing the leaders behind. Uh,
Interesting.
that
Yeah.
Is afraid. I would be afraid about that.
Yeah, it's a good topic. There's well, actually, when I was in Switzerland last week, I met with researchers who are looking at bias in LLMs. So we're going to actually work with them to look at whether, so all of the prompting and the way we build the prompts and the feedback we get. I mean, obviously, we tested it for consistency, for reliability, and for bias, but we can do it in a more scientific way, because like there still might be inherent bias. For example, if it picks up that this person is female or male, and potentially like address them differently. So it's not just political like bias that can be embedded. It can also just be yeah, gender based, age based, whatever that is. Um, I think it's interesting. This bias topic for me is super interesting because we are super vigilant when it comes to AI, when it comes to bias, but do we ask ourselves when we speak into humans whether they're biased or not?
Exactly, because we got used to that. And that is something that also behavioral science explains quite naturally. We got used to that, so we don't even ask.
Yeah, we just deal with it. Yeah. No, it's a the bias question is very interesting. I mean, AI is biased because humans are biased, right? That's because the humans who built it are biased. They're either like it's either a collection of biased content, or it's, as you said, they are adding a layer of bias on top of it for whatever reason. So yeah, I think bias is a super important topic, whether you're speaking to people or whether you're speaking to an AI. Like ideally, we would like to know what's what their goal is and what they're trying to achieve.
Let me share with you my ideal, my dream of development, of leadership development. Back in the days when I was in corporate, I would have liked to have feedback. I wouldn't. This story about flow in the flow of work is super important. We don't need a training in 6 months or too early. We need it on the spot. We need to know information when we need it. If we have a tough discussion with a direct report, if we have to deal with protecting our team from our boss or whatsoever, we need it on the spot. That would be like also, yes, this story about not feeling judged and very often facilitators in training, I mean, they crack a joke and in fact, they don't know that this is a real issue for you and it hurts that the guy is cracking a joke about the fact that sometimes you are a little bit shy with people. And I'm talking about me back in the day. So, what else do I need? I don't want to feel stressed. And sometimes when we are doing like, let's say in a training, we are doing, I don't know, a work group. I feel stressed because we have 5 minutes to finish that stuff. And with the stress, I'm not creative. I'm just tense. I want to feel safe when I say something that I'm trying and that nothing will happen. It's a trial. It is that, and it is okay to fail, to do try and fail because there is not one solution like my famous folder of 300 pages. There is many options. So that would be my ideal scenario. So now tell me, Waggle,
Yeah.
how far is it of my ideal scenario?
It's not far off. So basically, the way it works is like really simple. And if you think about it as if you had a coach, it's the best way to describe it. So basically, it's a little bot that joins your meetings. At the end of every meeting, it will assess two things. It assesses your behaviors and your skills that you are showing in the meeting, and it gives you feedback on each of them. It tells you, like, it also follows good practices for feedback. So it picks up what was the context, what did you do, what was the impact of that behavior, and how you can do it better. So very simple to go through, very simple to read. We also synthesize that as a score. So if like you're in a hurry, you can just look at the score and you can dig into the proper feedback later. And it also looks at the dynamics of the meeting itself, because there are two sides of it, of a meeting or a conversation. There's how did you show up as a person, and
Mm.
also how do people interact with each other. So we look at things like, is there psychological safety in these conversations? Are we just dropping, or like, are we dropping a lot of ideas? Um, are we like digging into those ideas? Is there like a good balance between ideas and questions to dig into those ideas? When someone states an idea, is it backed by facts? Is it backed by data? So we look at like a number of things. Do we make decisions at the end of the meeting, or did we spend like an hour talking and the outcome of the meeting is that we need another meeting? So we look at all of that, and where is it super interesting is when you start to look at it in terms of trends and like how like it evolves over time. It gives you a very good view on one, like who you are and how you behave, and create that self-awareness sense, but also how conversations are happening within a team and within a company, so that and you can start looking at like, okay, what does the culture look like really? Like we talk a lot about culture when it comes to companies, but it's still like such a fuzzy thing that no one can measure, no one knows how to really define. Now with this, we can start really defining it in real terms and like in real life, what does this company culture look like? And not just, oh, we have this poster that says this is how we do things here, but actually how it's actually happening on the ground. And yeah, it's like the data is fascinating. There's so much stuff that comes out of it that is super interesting to look at. But yeah, basically it's a little bot that, let's say, follows you everywhere, listens to how you interact with your team members in your meetings, and gives you feedback, and then aggregates that data over a period of time, so you can look at your progress, you can look at trends, and yeah.
Now, I want to dig a little bit about this story about context, because until 1 year ago, still most of the meetings were online, and suddenly there is some people who believes that we need to come back to the office. It's a must. Otherwise, we cannot control the people. Ugh. Anyways, so how do you manage that with the bot? Can the bot be present if it is a physical meeting? Can I just open the app and start listening?
Yeah, you can.
Nice.
You can do it. I mean, it's not going to record the video. It just picks up the voice. It can pick up that there are multiple voices. Then it's going to ask you like who's who, and then it's going to process the feedback as usual. But like I was saying earlier, you don't need it to be there all the time. So if there's a meeting that you don't want to like that you're doing in person, you don't want to turn Waggle on, you don't have to.
Uh-huh. Okay. That's fascinating, because as you say, it's not even about it's about going from this personal help to the leader's development to the big thing. The big thing is the culture,
Yeah.
because these guys influence the rest of the organization. All managers have a piece of duty to create this culture. And if you have the wrong managers, you can spot them and help them develop. And if they don't want help, give them a handshake, right?
Well, yeah, and more specifically, like I think they need to know what needs to change, right? Like in most cases, people don't know.
Yeah.
And the funny part is when we're speaking to users is that they usually kind of know what they're not good at, but they don't know what they're good at. Most people don't know what they're good at because no one tells them.
Yeah.
And part of the attractiveness of the product is that it also picks up when you do things well, because no one is like your manager is not there on the call when you do something well, and you like no one sees that. They probably have just bandwidth to give you like the bad feedback, but not the good feedback. So you also need to know what you're doing well so that you can do more of it.
Hmm. Tell me more about the feedback part. So do we stop at Ivan, you are improving into your shyness or your confidence, you are getting better, or is it, I would recommend to do action one, action two, and action three.
Yeah, it's action one, action two, action three. So it will say things like, um, so my one of my like worst scores is delegation. I struggle with that. So
Welcome to team.
so also small teams, so makes sense. But it will say, hey, Sarah, you mentioned a bunch of tasks in this meeting, and you said you were going to do them all by yourself. So next time, and like one time it even said, by the way, you said you are going to go on holidays next week, and you still didn't delegate anything. So next week when you're off, people are not going to be able to run the process without you. Um, so like the insights are super interesting sometimes. And so it will say, okay, next meeting, pick up a task, look at who in your team is the best suited to do it, and start delegating that one task. So it tells you what you should, like small actions or small improvements on how you can improve. And it's very specific to what you've done. What we've done as well is like we show you the portion of the call where you were assessed on that behavior. So because as humans, we tend to not want to believe when we do things that can be improved. So you can go back and say, oh, okay, I get it now. This is what I've said. This is why the AI is saying this.
So you are using the framework for habit creation, habit formation, right? The small little incremental behaviors that can become the big change. Uh,
Yeah, that
ma-
at some points become just something you do naturally, like you said. Yeah.
hmm. How did you go about the about my personal struggle with funny accents? So can it recognize my funny accent?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we should try it, but I'm like I have a French accent. I have a weird French accent. We have customers in Singapore, we have customers in Indonesia, so we're kind of used to accents from everywhere. Um, but yeah, I mean, always worth trying. The interesting part is even if it doesn't get like a specific word, it still can get the sentence meaning from the context. So it's okay if it misses one word or two. It still gets the overall idea.
Hmm. I understand that we have to start somewhere, and you have taken the call to say this is for people who leads people. Now, what prevents that people who don't lead people can start using getting feedback?
Nothing. We actually have people who don't lead people who use the products because at the end of the day, these are like soft skills and leadership skills that you probably want everyone to demonstrate, right? Even if the expectations or levels are slightly different, you still want everyone to be able to delegate. You still want everyone to be able to give feedback. You still want everyone to um, know how to like think strategically, right? These are skills that we all need to basically practice and show.
Hmm. This is very very cool. I'm even more excited than before, Sarah, with your tool.
You
We
know
will
what?
need to catch up.
I always get that. I always get that. So it means I'm doing something not super well on talking about it on the website. Uh, yeah, like I always get that, and it has been a struggle. I'm trying to like explain what it does a bit better, but I feel like I'm not there yet.
Um, is have you seen this concern that is in people in employees, or when you pitch your product to a company, this concern that people will be afraid of using it because you are spying on them, and
Yeah,
how do you
definitely.
overcome it, especially because that's a big problem, huh? If they don't want, and there is countries where it's more you cannot even send a mini survey to understand their culture because they will be so afraid. So it will be completely a culture survey could be, wow, bravo, it was amazing. And then they are complaining about it all over because
Yeah.
they're afraid of speaking up.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a valid concern. That's why what we do is we actually show them, in most cases, what works is we actually show them this is the view that your leadership team is going to have access to. And from that view, you clearly cannot identify anyone. And so that usually works well in showing that yeah, no one is going to see what your feedback. No one is going to know what you like. This is not built to spy on you. This is really a tool for each person to take ownership on their self-development and learning and get the feedback that they need. And that's not shared with anyone. If you want to share it, feel free to go ahead and share it, but we're not going to do that for you. It's completely private, just for you.
Hmm. So, as you mentioned early on, we do things that are a little bit more into the same direction in terms of the outcomes in a different manner, but in the same direction in terms of the outcome for organizations and this big dream of having happy people who are doing good job and they feel proud of that. Now, my understanding is that when they get it, the corporations, and you because you are telling them, I'm not going to sell you satisfaction surveys of training. I'm going to sell you something that really creates change and we measure that change. So I clearly imagine that when they get it, they want to understand how many people are changing in the organization. So this dashboard of the aggregated dashboard of the organization with how many people are actually practicing, in which areas are people really sucking, and in which areas they have progressed like crazy, in which areas, in fact, it's not about the people, it's about the CEOs or the processes that are not in place to let this skill grow. How far did you go into
So
that dashboard?
yeah, I mean, it's work in progress, obviously, but we show you that. We just show it to you at an aggregated level. So we're not like exactly like this engagement surveys. They have a rule where they don't show you like a team if it's below a certain number of people. So we apply the same rules, right? Because otherwise you can start identifying who said what or who did what. So in our case, we don't go below five. So we show you from five upwards.
Mm,
And you still get extremely good, like interesting data. You can see um, how many meetings are leading to decisions, how many meetings don't end up with a decision, how effective meetings are on a day where people have a lot of meetings versus when people have less meetings. And you can actually see that when you have less meetings, you have better meetings. Um, you can see like what are the overall skill gaps that you have. You can compare a team to another in terms of like what they're strong on, what they are weaker on, but without knowing what specific individual is behind each data point. So it's super safe. It still gives you like super interesting data at like organizational level, but without sacrificing the privacy of each individual.
mm. So I can easily imagine that there is certain dimensions where they want to see progress. Like I have put together this tool at the beginning, it was we were in a score of 40, now we have progressed at 60. Or you have this possibility to see the trend of
Yeah,
how
yeah,
far
yeah.
the whole organization is growing in a specific dimension.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you can. And what we want to do is also, as we start collecting more data, also do benchmarks. Like we want to also show you like where you stand in comparison with companies that are the same size as you, the same industry as you, maybe the same country as you. So you can start because a data point in isolation doesn't like it's not telling you much. The value comes more from the trend or like the trajectory or if you can compare it to like a baseline somewhere. So yeah, we're working towards that.
Did you notice, Sarah, that I promised you to follow a certain number of questions that I had planned, and in fact, I didn't follow any of the questions because I got hooked with the topic. Now, I'm pretty sure that a lot of other people are going, when they're going to listen this, they are going to say, what the hell, I need to try it. So how can people go and try it?
Yeah, just send me a message. I'm on LinkedIn or by email, and I'm happy to like show you around.
That okay. So I have to take note. So we have the LinkedIn profile of Sarah Touzani. So that's number one, which I'm going to put it below this video. We have the website, use Waggle.ai. I even have your personal website, but I think with that, I will put the three. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, just reach out in any way. We'll figure out how to book a demo.
Sarah, it was really enlightening and refreshing to see that something is going on a topic that I was bitching about since I started working, uh, leadership development. Uh, I'm so excited, and really, I think this needs conversation needs to continue. Thank you very much, Sarah, for your time, dedication, and let's keep in touch.
Of course. Thanks for having me.